This is why I absolutely love Warren Sharp on Twitter and everything he posts. I love talking about because I'm a stat nerd and I love stats and breaking down stats in every way possible. So he posted this right here. Now, this is the 2024 NFL rest edges. And let me break this down for you because it looks a little bit more confusing than it actually is. So there are three different variants of a rest before you play your opponent. So this is the amount of rest days that your opponent has versus how many you have. So let's say, for example, you play on Sunday, right? You play your next game on Sunday. Your opponent also went from Sunday to Sunday. So, meaning you had 7 days of rest before you play your next opponent. If both of you have the same amount of rest, well, then you are going to you're not going to show up on this chart. So, if your game is equal with your opponent, you're not going to see a block on this chart. But let's say, for example, your opponent has one extra day of rest than you. Well, now you will show up on the chart with a -1. Let's say you have a +1 day. So you play Thursday night football, so you get an extra day, and you're able to get some extra, rest in before you have to play your opponent. Well, then you would be the plus, right? So if you had 4 days of rest, 7 days of rest, and your opponent doesn't have the same luxury, let's say they have 7 days less, then you will show up on the list either positive or negative. So it's a pretty simplistic type of design here. It's like, okay, depending on how many rest days you have. Now, again, this doesn't really matter early in the season, but later in the season, especially near the playoffs, this matters a crap ton. When you look at the fact that we play 3 games from week 14, 15, and 16, all 3 of those games are in a 10-day period, yeah, it's going to get a little wild, right? So let's break this down and look at this. So the best team, who actually does have a tough schedule, I'll give Baltimore credit here. They have a tough schedule, but they have a very, very nice situation right here when it comes to their schedule of not having to play too many games where they are in negative here. They only have 2 games where they're negative. The rest of their games are getting +1 day rest on their opponent, +3 day, +3 day, +4 day, and +7 day. New England is currently sitting at +12, and they have 0 days that they are negative, so no days where their opponent has more rest days than them. But they do have a lot of positive days as well. And as we go down this list here, you can see we actually show up in the -2 spot. So even though, again, this is why, yes, we have a very easy schedule this year. I am thankful the NFL decided that, this year they were not going to absolutely try to bone us. But at the same time, it doesn't mean that there isn't negatives as well. We are one of the 3 teams that have to play 3 games in 10 days, and that's not easy to do. So, again, just want to point that out. But, for example, for us, with our -2, we have a game where our opponent has 4 days extra to prepare and, rest up. They have -3 days. They have 3 days. They have 1 day. They have 1 day. And then going on to it, 3 days that we have, 3 days that we have, and 4 days that we have. Again, it's not really a big deal unless you're the San Francisco 49ers, who apparently, I guess, the NFL just absolutely hates because they just put the 49ers as like -1,000,000 days, it looks like. I mean, -7 days, -7 days, -7 days, -3, -3, -3, -1, -1, and +3 and +8. So, I don't know who the 49ers pissed off, but apparently they pissed off someone at the NFL, because the NFL is like, nah, you guys are about to play, you're about to play everyone who has better rest days than you. But other than that, again, it does impact more toward the end of the season than the beginning of the season. Beginning of the season, everyone's rested up, everyone's ready to go. They've been resting all all off season. They're ready to play. But once you get to the regular season, man, once you get to like close to the postseason, these are things that really start to impact you. Is how many rest days you have versus your opponent. Especially when players are, shaken up, injured, not 100%. You have to get players back from, injury. all that kind of stuff. So it's, I just want to make the video not really to in any way kind of complain and say like, oh, we have a tough schedule. We don't have a tough schedule. We have the fourth easiest schedule, okay? But it is something to take in consideration, right? It's something to look at and be like, ooh, okay. I mean, again, it's not a tough schedule, but it's definitely one of those situations where there's more than just meet the eyes when it comes to, okay, who you playing? You're playing this team, you're playing that team. How is this going to break down? Well, there's also this factor right here, which, again, well, it'll be interesting to see how this turns out. I don't think it's going to impact us too much. But real side note here is this is the highest it has ever been in the negative side. Like the differences between the teams having extra rest versus teams not having extra rest. This is the worst it has ever been in NFL history. So, I mean, the NFL is definitely doing some things here because it has never been this imbalanced before in NFL history. So, this next year, I don't know what the NFL is doing. I don't know if they're getting, an extra paycheck or extra money for making this schedule so absolutely insane. But there's so many things coming out right now on how crazy insane this schedule actually is. Like, they're like, oh yeah, this never happened before, this amount of games, or this stretch. I know the Steelers stretch, for example, is absolutely insane. That's something that, we haven't seen a team have to go through those 8 games, that gauntlet in history. So, it's gonna be an interesting season. I mean, it's all making up for us to be right back in Louisiana, going to the Super Bowl in the Superdome and finishing what we started back in 2020. And now, 2021, excuse me. And we're going to finish it, guys. Bring a Super Bowl home to the Queen City. It's time. It's time to finish what we started with Joe. And it's going to be a fantastic season. But, yeah, this is the only negative. Like, there's that little bit of negatives, but this is that little bit of negatives that I like to break down and talk about, so that when we win the Super Bowl, if anything, this is even more firepower. When we win the Super Bowl, when people are like, oh, you won the Super Bowl with the fourth easiest schedule, I'll be like, really? Look at this. We have the toughest, or one of the toughest when it comes to our differentials of, rest days versus non-rest days. Okay? The NFL did not just absolutely bonus. There's actually people who are saying that the NFL is trying to give us a free Super Bowl win, which I find hilarious, because if people think that the regular season impacts the postseason in any way possible, you're absolutely crazy. Like, yes, obviously, if you win, if you number 1 seed, you get a bye week, but it doesn't mean you're going to win the Super Bowl just because you have a bye week. I mean, you could still easily lose and have a bye week. It's not going to really impact that much. I mean, yeah, the first round bye is nice, so. I don't know. Tell me down below your thoughts and opinions. I'll see you guys next one. Peace.